All right, we are recording. All right, so this is the Battle of Ohio podcast prediction segment for Week 11. As I said on the main podcast, Thomas is not here this week. He's dealing with a personal issue. So he did send me his prediction picks, though. So we do have those. But in lieu of him, I brought a friend of mine. His name is TJ. He is here. He's a Bengals fan. And he's here to, help me talk about these predictions and everything and give his thoughts and everything. So say hi, TJ.
Hello. Big Bengals fan. Disappointing season, but I think we're on the up and up going forward.
That it has not been a great season for Bengals fans, but TJ actually fellow Ohio University alumni, just like me and Thomas. So we got a lot of Bobcats on this show. If only we've had one other guest and he was not a Bobcat. He was a Bearcat though, so a lot of cats on this show. So, I don't know if that means anything. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into these predictions. So we're going to start like we always start with all the games that are outside of the AFC North. And so, TJ, the first game we got this week is the Patriots going to Houston to play the Texans. Who you got?
So, I think the games are difficult from week to week to pick because a lot of times you look at last week and try to just use that week as a reference point for what this week's going to be, and sometimes that can burn you. But I really think this week I'm going to go with the Patriots. Just historically, they have dominated the Texans overall, and I think they're trending in the right way. And just overall as a team, the coach, from the coaching to just the execution out on the field lately, I'm just going to go Patriots. What are your thoughts?
You're going Patriots. I pretty much agree with you. The Texans are a really, 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 really bad team. Now, not that the Patriots are like, this great world beater that we're used to seeing out of, New England and Bill Belichick coach teams. And, we're not used to seeing them struggle like we're seeing them, this season. But they do seem like, they're still a team like who'd they beat last week? The Baltimore Ravens. So they're still a team that I don't think anybody should, just like count out. And up against bad teams, I would expect them to win those games. Now, they did struggle against the Jets, but they did beat them. And I don't know, the way I see it, especially from a matchup perspective, the Texans just don't have what it takes to take this Patriots team down. I think it's going to be a very bad season for the Houston Texans. It's been a bad season for the Houston Texans, and this is going to be another example of it being a bad season for the Houston Texans. So give me the Patriots. By the way, I meant to do this earlier, but I didn't do a beer segment on the main podcast because it was just me, and I don't really want to drink alone. But now I got somebody with me. I do have a beer now. I got Christian Moorline Over the Rhine lager, or actually it's an amber ale. And I've never actually had this before, despite being from Cincinnati. I like that. Christian Moorline.
I've been there a couple times.
Cincinnati. What?
I've been to that Moorline place down in Cincinnati a couple times. It's a nice place there.
Oh yeah, I've been there. I don't think I've had this specific one, but
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, Moorline's super popular here in Cincinnati, and this is an example of why this is delicious. What you got?
I stopped over across the street earlier before I started this and got a Fatheads Holly Jolly, which I've never had before, but I've been to the Fatheads Brewery and I like the Bumbleberry, so I thought I'd give the Christmas ale a try, even though I'm not super Christmas fan, but it's pretty good. I had a little swig of it earlier. Would recommend trying it.
Yeah, I don't think I've had that one, but Fatheads is delicious, just always. I don't think I've had a bad Fathead. So, but anyway, getting back to the reason why we're doing this podcast. Second game up, we got the Miami Dolphins, who are just on an absolute tear lately. They haven't lost since Tua Tagovailoa has been starting. It hasn't been because of Tua Tagovailoa. It's been because of that defense going up against the very much struggling Denver Broncos. So I think I can guess who you're going to pick, but why don't you go ahead and tell me?
Sure. I mean, I think coming into the season, a lot of people were hot on the Broncos, thinking they were kind of like the hot team that
They did.
everyone was. You got Drew Lock, which everyone, is kind of like, is this going to be the year that he really pops off? And then with Cortland Sutton getting hurt, and on the defensive side, Von Miller getting hurt, and they just have not. They've looked awful, honestly. I mean, the last week I didn't expect the Raiders to trounce them like that, in the way they did. So I think these teams are currently trending in the opposite direction. The obvious pick is the Dolphins, and there's always a game every week that doesn't make any sense, but I don't think it's going to be this one. I'll take the Dolphins. I think Flores has that team buying in, from a special teams and defensive side. They make it easier for Tua, and he is undefeated as a starter. So I'll take the Dolphins.
I will also take the Dolphins. I've actually picked against the Dolphins in a couple of weeks recently, and it's burned me every time. And I swear to God, I'm learning my lesson. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins in this one because until that defense shows me otherwise, they are a force to be reckoned with, and I do not see Drew Lock being the quarterback who figures them out. Or maybe he figures them out, but I don't think he has the talent to actually be able to overcome not just these players on the Dolphins defense, but that defensive mind in Brian Flores. And then, I don't think, especially without some of their biggest stars on defense, I don't see them being able to stop Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins offense enough to give the Broncos offense a chance to really win this game.
The Dolphins defense is scary. There was a clip I saw, Justin Herbert coming up to the line last week, and they had their front seven all kind of like not committing one way or another, like whether they were rushing or whether they were dropping back, and they're all kind of just bouncing around. And I was thinking that's not a position I would want to be looking at. Like the Dolphins defense is legit.
Well, it's really helpful when you can confuse the hell out of opposing quarterbacks with the various defensive sets that you got, and it's really going to be easy when you got a guy like Drew Lock who's both young, and the mental side of the game isn't necessarily. I mean, I don't think he's terrible at the mental side of things, but it's not necessarily his strongest suit. He's more of the well, anyway. Just suffice it to say, I don't trust Drew Lock against this Dolphins defense. I think that the Dolphins will have will come back down to earth eventually, but it is not this week against the Broncos. This is, I think, a pretty sure easy win for them. Next game on the schedule, we got the New York Jets, if you can even call them that, going up against the Los Angeles Chargers in Los Angeles. What are your thoughts here, TJ?
Chargers, no more questions.
Yes, this one doesn't really require a lot of analysis.
The Jets are futile. I just think
the Jets are really bad, and Justin Herbert.
Pick your eliminator pick every week against them, and you'll be good.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not going to commit myself necessarily yet to to any future picks, but next week, I actually had to, when I did my season predictions before we started this podcast, when I did my season predictions at the beginning of the year about, I went through, I picked every single game and just to see what I thought was going to happen. First of all, I had the Bengals going 8-8. So, that didn't happen. Maybe my predictions aren't really going to work out so well, but I did have the
Jets. If you had the tie, I would have been asking you for lotto advice. So.
Yeah. I had the Jets going 1-15 actually. So I am definitely on pace for that. Although it's starting to be like winning the.
Who are they going to beat?
Game, but you know who I had them beating? The Miami Dolphins next week. Now I'm not saying I still believe that. We'll see next week. But Yeah, that was the only team I had them meeting all year, and that was before I even knew how bad. I knew they were going to be bad. I didn't know they were going to be this bad. This is like a different level of bad that's just not even okay. So
So we both got the Chargers.
we both got the Chargers. Actually, I don't think we've had any deviations so far. We've only picked 3 games, but um,
There will be some.
yeah. By the way, everybody, let me actually go find this real quick, just as a update to make sure we're keeping track of what Thomas's picks were. He had the Patriots beating the Texans. He actually disagreed with me and TJ on the Dolphins and Broncos. He thinks the Broncos are going to beat the Dolphins, and I'll have to ask him why he thinks that next time I see him. But he did pick the Broncos in that game, and he also picked the Chargers over the Jets. So that's no big surprises in 2 of those, and for me, a pretty big surprise that he picked the Broncos over the Dolphins. But yeah. So anyway, next game we got on the schedule is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now the Chiefs, really, really, really good team. Although the team that they lost to this year, because they're not undefeated, was this Raiders team. So TJ, do you think they do it again?
I don't, only because there's like 3 factors in my head. One being the fact that the Raiders circled their bus around the Chiefs the first time that they beat them. The second thing is the Chiefs are coming off a bye. Andy Reid off a bye is usually like he's got it figured out. And just I think we're gonna see the Chiefs gel from here until the playoff run. And so I just think all those factors coming together. This is at Kansas. No, this is at Vegas. But anyway, I think the Chiefs win by more than a touchdown.
Yeah,
I'll take the Chiefs.
I absolutely agree with you with pretty much everything you said. Now, interestingly enough, those season predictions that I talked about earlier when I did them at the beginning of the year, I did have the Raiders and Chiefs splitting the series. However, I had this one as the one the Raiders win, and the other one as the one the Raiders lose. So I'm not saying I'm picking the Chiefs this week because it has to be a split, and it absolutely has to be a split, or it would never work. And that's just kind of a ridiculous way to pick games. But I will say the Chiefs, I just don't see anybody, especially they were on bye last week, right? Yeah. So especially coming off bye, being rested, and the way that they've looked this year, especially having lost to the Raiders previously, and having a little bit more of an idea of how your game plan actually plays against them, and really where your own weaknesses are as they relate to the Raiders. I think this is going to be kind of a bounce back game for the Chiefs, at least as far as the Chiefs Raiders series go. And I agree with you.
I think the Raiders are frauds. I think the Raiders are total frauds. Their record doesn't indicate what they're going to be down the stretch. Just personally, check back with me in January, but I don't think the Raiders are going to be a team that makes a deep playoff run.
I don't think the Raiders. I don't agree that the Raiders are frauds. I do think the Raiders are a good team, but I think they're a good team, not a great team. This is a team that I see making it to January, but it's going to be like one of those, many Bengals teams that we've watched over the years. They're going to make it to January, and they ain't going to do anything in January, in my opinion. However, them losing this week, I believe, does knock them out of holding on. I don't. Do they currently hold on to a? Yes, they do. They are currently in control of the number 6 seed. With this loss, that'll knock them all the way down to number 9. But I do think they claw their way back to be possibly that number 7 seed by the end of the regular season. So we got the Green Bay Packers going to Indianapolis to play the Colts this week. Who do you got?
I would love for you to go first this time because I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I'm just curious to hear what you think first.
Right, I'll go first. Before I say that, however, I will say that Thomas picked the Chiefs to win, which I'm sure everybody can probably figure out. But my thoughts on this game is you just called the Raiders frauds, right?
I did. Hand up.
I think the Colts are frauds. And
Okay.
I don't know if I can also maybe see calling the Packers frauds a little bit because they do have kind of a tendency to play down to opponents, but they are also when they turn it on, the Packers are really, really good. Aaron Rodgers is in the MVP conversation when he's not playing like he did against Jaguars. So I think this is I think this is a game where Aaron Rodgers makes a statement, and it looks like Thomas does not agree with me. Thomas is picking the Colts on this one, but I am picking the Packers.
This is to me one of the most intriguing games of the whole slate. Like I was looking over the games and I'm like, this one, as I look over it more and more, I cannot figure out what's going to happen. I go back to my gut most of the time. Last week, I absolutely thought the Titans would win, and then I texted my dad and he said, "Go with the Colts." I changed my pick to the Colts. Colts won. Their defense and special teams dominated, but I think like you mentioned, um, I don't think the Colts are a legitimate. Like they've had some splashes here and there, but ultimately what it came down to with this game was like Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers, and to me, I think Aaron Rodgers is better, and therefore the Packers will win this game. They kind of slept through that Jaguars game, and
Yeah.
I think they're going to come back.
Well, you know what? Actually, weirdly enough, in lieu of doing my actual job here and watching the Browns game last week, I was glued to my seat watching that Packers game with the Jaguars because I was just fascinated by the idea like these guys are actually going to lose to the Jaguars. So I'm not saying that we don't do like lock of the week or anything like that on this podcast, but if we did, I'm not saying I would pick the Packers by any means as my lock of the week because they are going to have to come through and do what they do. But I think at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers at this point of his career is light years ahead of Phillip Rivers at this point in Phillip Rivers' career. And I don't know, the Colts have a struggling running game right now, which is really honestly how you kind of take the Packers to town is you pound the ball on the ground. And I don't see the Colts as being capable of doing that right now. So that I don't know. That's why I think that I think I'm fairly certain. I wouldn't call it a lock, but I'm fairly certain that the Packers are going to win this game. So next up on the slate, we got the Detroit Lions and the Carolina Panthers. What are your thoughts?
This is another tough one that I've been going back and forth in my head on. But I think the Lions last week, it was an emotional walk-off win, and you just don't see them winning and stringing together a lot of wins together. And I think the Panthers are like kind of an even keel, steady team, like not a lot of highs and lows. They play a lot of competitive games, but to me, they don't seem like a team that's like, they just seem like in this matchup, I think they're going to win. Stafford's banged up. Swift is out. Galladay's out. I'm just going to go with the Panthers in this particular game, just because I don't know. I could be wrong. Like the Lions could get hot, but they seem like a team to me that's just too inconsistent to string together a bunch of wins. So I'm going to go with Panthers.
That's fair. Quick question. I don't remember if you actually ended up making a pick. Did you pick the Colts or the Packers in the last?
I'm going Packers. Going Packers. Yeah.
All right. So
just because it came down to Aaron Rodgers over Phillip Rivers, which could be the wrong way to look at it because the Packers D is bad. But
I'll be honest, that's the way I'm kind of looking at it too, and that's why I picked the Packers. But Thomas agrees with you on the Panthers and Lions this week. I disagree with you both. I think the Lions have shown this. Look, I don't think the Lions are. The Lions are weird. The Lions are not that great of a team, but the Lions are that team that like every year there's this team that just kind of like puts together wins and just like somehow wins games and like threatens for playoff positioning whenever, maybe even makes the playoffs. And then when they actually get to the playoffs, you see that they're really, truly, completely frauds. And I think the Lions are frauds in the idea that they're not actually like a contender, but I think that they are the kind of team that can
knock someone out of playoff contention.
They're like the perpetual, what do you call it? The perpetual track game. essentially, is what the Lions are. And people really ought to
Yeah.
start taking the Lions seriously because right now the Lions are, one game under 500 when everybody thought Matt Patricia was getting fired like 5 weeks ago. Um,
Yeah.
so I know I do agree with you. The injury situation in this game can be kind of problematic for the Lions, but I see the Panthers as a team that's very similar to the Bengals right now. They're a team that, while they do have a decent amount of talent, they have in my opinion, I think the Bengals do have a good head coach, and I think the Carolina Panthers have a really good head coach, and that's really what's I think holding this Panthers team from worse disaster than they're already at. Um, I don't think that's going to be enough to overcome a Lions team that just just seemingly randomly knows how to put games together. They had this really impressive comeback against the Washington football team this week, and I just don't see the Carolina Panthers jumping out to a lead like that. Um, Especially they had a they dropped a comeback against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Like they were winning that game early on, right? Or at least doing well.
I thought it was kind of wire to wire for the Bucks last week. I could be wrong.
Well, the Bucks ended up blowing them out. But I think if I recall the first half, the Panthers were looking like they might be able to steal that game. And it was so that's the exact kind of game that the Lions won against the Washington football team last week. And the Panthers are a better team than the Washington football team, but not by that much. So I don't know. Just for me, until the Lions prove to me otherwise, I'm going to start picking. I'm going to be picking them against teams that I just don't see as being all that good. But we'll see. I could be wrong, but I think the Lions. I think the Lions are starting to believe in Matt Patricia, which may not be good for Lions fans because I don't know if Matt Patricia is the guy to get them where they want to go. But I think he is putting together something right here, right now. I think he's putting together something that his players buy into. So give me the Lions this week. And like I said, Thomas picked the Panthers. So if the Panthers win, then you both will make me look like an idiot. And but I don't think that's going to happen. So next on the slate, we got the I don't know why the name of the city slipped my name for a second. The Atlanta Falcons traveling to New Orleans to play the Saints. So, what are your thoughts?
All right, this is my upset special of the week. Maybe everyone else is doing this upset special, but I'm taking the Falcons. I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness with the Saints. There's something weird about the Saints. So like they keep winning every single week, but I am not sold on them. And the Falcons, they've won the last couple. They had a bye. I just they're hot right now. And here's the thing about the Falcons: I cannot pick them in games. No matter what I pick them, the opposite's going to happen. So if you have a lot of money, put it on the Saints because I'm taking the Falcons. The Saints not having Drew Brees, and then like they're kind of like communicating that Taysom Hill's going to start, but I don't know that that's true. It could be a smokescreen. They could be doing some weird packages and stuff with Kamara and so forth. But the Saints will probably win this game. I'm still going Falcons.
All right.
It's the weird pick of the week that I think like doesn't make sense because last year around this time, same thing happened. Like the Saints absolutely should win this game. There's no reason they shouldn't. So I'm going to pick the Falcons for that reason. It makes no sense.
So I completely agree with you. The Saints absolutely should win this game, and that is why I am picking the Saints. Thomas agrees with me on this one, just for everybody's record. But like you said, for me, it's really just I respect the hell out of what Alvin Kamara can do so much, and not having Drew Brees sucks. But the backup situation that New Orleans has right now for Drew Brees is kind of this weird, awkward combination of Taysom Hill and James Winston. And if those are your emergency last options, you're doing pretty good. So I don't know. I agree that the Saints maybe are not as great as their record indicates, and a big reason why they have the record they do right now is because they had the Buccaneers number and they swept them, and that's a big part of why they're at where they're at right now. Um, but I do think they're vulnerable, but I think the Falcons are just the Falcons have been putting it together a little bit better in recent weeks than they did at the beginning of the year. But I still don't trust that defense going up against all of the offensive.
Yeah, the defense is bad.
Right, and with all those offensive weapons they have in New Orleans, especially, I believe Michael Thomas is back. Right, he's playing, and he's going to be a potential weapon. You got Alvin Kamara, you got, like I said, you got a combination of Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, and an excuse to be more creative with Taysom Hill since Drew Brees isn't playing, and you got Jameis Winston, but you want to you want to try to harness his talent, but you also want to kind of try to limit his mistakes. So, what better way to do that than to throw in some more Taysom Hill craziness? I don't know. It just
What's up with the Taysom Hill being an eligible tight end in the fantasy football league? They're letting Taysom Hill be a tight end, but he's a quarterback. That's kind of weird.
I wonder if that affects the way that points are counted for him. Like if you play him as a tight end, does he get points for throwing touchdowns?
That's the spin zone that I didn't even think about.
Right, because I think I could be wrong about this, but I think like back when Mohamed Sanu was throwing touchdown passes for the Bengals, right? I'm pretty sure if you played him in fantasy that week, you got credit for those touchdown passes. So
the weird thing on the app today was that it showed him in the tight end slot, but it's a tight end, QB, which makes me think you get all the points. And then they said they would reevaluate it after this week, maybe depending on his role, which is unfair to the person that's playing against him. I don't know. The whole thing's weird.
If he is getting both sets of fantasy points, then I have got to find a way to trade for that guy immediately. I got a really easy matchup this week, and I would still trade for him. Because my starting tight end right now is Hayden Hurst, so I'm not doing so well at the tight end position. I had George Kittle. No. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. We got the Dallas Cowboys going to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Not particularly great teams. I've also seen worse teams in the league in both cases. So I don't think this will be a game that I'll be watching personally because it just doesn't seem like it'll be fun. So who do you think's going to win?
It's another one of these games that I thought about taking the Cowboys, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I think the Vikings have been hot, and the Cowboys' defense is horrendous. I just see Dalvin Cook running all over them. Could be completely wrong. But Andy Dalton and them coming off the bye, and the Cowboys are just – I keep thinking about the defense and how bad they are and just the Vikings trending in the other direction. So I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Right.
Upset special? Is anyone taking the Cowboys?
I'm sure there will be people. You know what? I might be picking the Cowboys actually. Now that I think about it, I don't know.
Red Rifle back in action.
What?
Red Rifle's back in action. Post-COVID, post-concussion, he's ready to roll.
I have a thought on that actually. So who is a quarterback who just reminds me, maybe not so much in style of play, but in as far as luck and personality and stuff, is not always personality, but as far as like on field personality and luck in the way that they kind of get wins and chill factor and stuff like that. Who reminds me of Andy Dalton? It's Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins finally got the Monday Night monkey off his back. And so, see, I've got a thought about this game. Some listeners of this podcast may be aware. Others may not be aware. I used to write for Cincy Jungle years ago, coming right out of college. At the very end of my college career and coming right out of college, I was writing for Cincy Jungle for a while. And one thing in particular that I really looked into at the time was Andy Dalton's ability to play football games at specific time slots. And I don't remember exactly what the numbers are. I'd have to go find my article, but he is disproportionately dominant at the 4 p.m. time slot. He's not very good at like the primetime time slot, and he's kind of up and down at the 1 p.m. time slot. But when it's 4 p.m., when most people are doing something else in the middle of the day instead of watching 3 football games in a row like normal people do, Andy Dalton knows how to perform then.
That's an interesting fact to know.
Yeah, so man, this is
I feel like the Cowboys could win this game. I feel like they could. I'm torn, but then like
I am going to think that I'm going to pick the Vikings because I have a rule on this podcast in this prediction segment. It is right now. My rule is unless there is just complete, utter, compelling evidence, which I don't know, that 4 p.m. time slot thing might be a thing, but unless there is complete, utter, compelling evidence, I am picking against the NFC East team on almost every single game, unless it's between two NFC East teams, just because this division is so awful. Every team is awful. And it's not just because it's the NFC East, it's because individually every team, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the football team, the other the New Jersey Giants, they're all so bad. Like just so bad. You could make an argument for every team except maybe the Giants just because of recent results. But other than that, you could make an argument for every team being a bottom 5 team in this league. You really could.
the Vikings are kind of sneaky. Like they had that game against the Seahawks, they definitely should have won. There's a couple games they should have probably already won. Like they're one of those teams in the middle of the pack right now that are like, if they get on a hot run, be scary to play.
Well, I think I'm going to agree with you and Thomas, actually. I mean, both of you, he picked the Vikings as well. I'm going to agree with you guys. I think I'm going to go with the Vikings, even though my gut tells me to go with the Cowboys because this is Andy Dalton. This is the time when Andy Dalton always shines.
4 p.m.
4 p.m. But I think Dalvin Cook is way too prepared to take that defense to town. Kirk Cousins getting that monkey off his back last week. It seems like it'll help his confidence a lot this week. It just, to me, the Vikings are way too complete of a game of a team. I do think I will say even in the loss, I do think Andy Dalton has a really good game this week. But it just I don't know. There are too many reasons to think that the Vikings are going to pull it out either way. So last non-AFC North game of the week. We got the Los Angeles Rams going to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Now, as bad as that, what was it? The Jets-Chargers game, I think I said earlier. As bad as that Jets-Chargers game looks, as far as like unwatchability, maybe it was was it the Panthers? I said that about one game. It might have been the Panthers and Lions. I forget exactly which game I said it about, but that's the exact opposite in this one. These are two really good teams. I wouldn't call the Rams like really, really good, but they're definitely like they're scrappy and good. Like, they're one of those teams that they can compete with anybody and they're scrappy. So that's dangerous. And then there's, the greatest quarterback of all time. So who do you got?
This could be a preview of the NFC Championship game. And I don't know. I think both these teams are legit on both sides of the ball. And on the given week, I mean, I watched Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago against the Saints, and I did not see that coming at all. Like that performance just kind of blew me away, to be honest.
Both games, really.
Yeah, both Saints games. I don't think the Saints are that much head above the Bucks, so those ones puzzled me. And then the Bucks completely dominate the Packers. If you try to do all this stuff, it doesn't make any sense.
This is why power.
But if I just think about this game and this matchup, I think you're going to see. God, I mean, both these teams have like dynamic offenses, dynamic defenses. It's a toss-up in my head. It's a flip a coin, but I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Rams. Actually, I just flipped it.
The Rams.
I'm going to go with the Rams on the road. They'll probably get blown out. Go with the Rams.
Well, that's good confidence to have. Thomas picked the Buccaneers, and I think I'm going to agree with Thomas on this one. I see under the bright lights. I see Tom Brady rising to the challenge as he always does in those kind of
It's past
situations.
his bedtime.
I see Jared Goff shrinking because I think it's past his bedtime because he's got school in the morning. Well, yeah, it is on
Yeah.
Monday night, so yeah, I guess that would be school in the morning, unless we get a COVID lockdown. You never know. Um, so yeah, the Buccaneers, they're just like you said, it's weird that they got swept by the Saints, and not just swept, but they got dominated in both games by the Saints. Um, if I'm remembering that correctly, I believe they got dominated in both.
Yeah, it was like multiple touchdowns both times. I don't know. I picked the Bucks earlier. Now I'm reevaluating my mind. This is a toss up, true toss up.
Well, you're more than welcome to change your mind if you want. So, okay, so the most recent game was a blowout. The one before that was still it was the Saints won 34-23, which isn't quite as much domination. But if I recall correctly, there was something about like Tom Brady had a really bad game, and it was like week one, and it looked like, oh well, maybe this is the classic case of a 40-year-old quarterback being on a new team, and maybe Tom Brady isn't as good as we all thought, and then the next week he comes out and just is Tom Brady for the rest of the season. But yeah, those two Saints games, and then there was one more game they lost this year.
Bears,
It was
which
against
makes
the
no sense.
Bears because
But it was after his bedtime. That's what it is. He hasn't won a night game yet.
was
I'm
was
going
that
with the Rams. Lock it up.
you going with the Rams?
Yeah, just because it's past Tom Brady's bedtime. I don't think he's won a night game yet. That's what it is. Lock it up. Put all your money on the Rams, everyone.
I cannot condone that. The Rams didn't perform. The Rams didn't fare too well against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and this got to me. It's got a very similar feeling to it. And I know it's all new coaches. It's mostly new players, but I don't know. Tom Brady had his way with the Rams last time, and I know that was a couple of years ago. But I see a very similar situation happening this year. That Rams defense pretty good, but that Buccaneers offense pretty good, and that Rams offense is kind of up and down with a very very up and down quarterback. So I don't know. Just to me, the Buccaneers are the more complete team. I don't know if this is going to be a blowout or a close game or what. I honestly I don't even really feel comfortable enough to pick what is going to happen in this game beyond just I think the Buccaneers will win. So now we can go ahead and move on to AFC North games. So let's go ahead and talk about this Steelers-Jaguars game. What do you think? Who's going to win
Here's
between
what I think.
Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I think it's to be a similar game that we saw a couple weeks ago where the Steelers play the Cowboys because it seems like every time they play an inferior opponent, they win, but it's not like they crush them. And last week, I think the Jags are kind of feisty. They played with the Packers last week, and I see it being kind of like a, I don't know, 27-24 win for the Steelers, something like that, just because you think they're 10-point favorites, like Vegas has them at 10-point favorites. I don't know, maybe they'll kill them, but I see it being closer than you would think it to be, and the Steelers just edging them out because they always find, it'll come down to like, it'll be the fourth quarter and the Jags will be driving. They'll be like, in the red zone, and then they'll come up with some miraculous turnover, and then Ben will be standing over there on the sidelines going, oh yeah. They always just inch it out, and they'll be undefeated still. So I hate the Steelers. I'm a big Bengals fan, so I hate the Steelers, but they're good at what they do. So they'll just edge it out. That's my opinion. What do you think?
I don't know if I agree that the Steelers are necessarily good at what they do. They're good enough at what they do for sure. And they're good at some things. They're great at defense. TJ Watt is great at getting to the quarterback, as we saw. But and I also agree with you. The Jaguars are scrappy. That they had a really 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 good game one, and then they just kind of like haven't really done a whole lot else this season, but they've been kind of competitive in a lot of most of the games that not really, but there have been a few select games where the Jaguars have been really competitive in, and one of them was against the Packers. Now you don't got Gardner Minshew, so you don't got that Minshew magic. And personally, I think that if Minshew was playing, I think I'd still pick the Steelers, but I think it would be a much harder decision than it is for me right now because I think this Jaguars team, I think don't be shocked if the Jaguars, shock the world and pull off the upset in this game because the Steelers historically under Mike Tomlin have had a habit of playing down to their opponents. Now they never seem to do that with the Bengals, regardless of how like lesser of an opponent the Bengals are. They always seem to, mostly destroy us. There was a little while there where things were kind of competitive, but that's when the Bengals weren't really necessarily lesser opponent back in those days. But no, I do see the Jaguars giving the Steelers a hard time this week, but I would be pretty. Like I said, I don't think anybody should be shocked if the Jaguars pull off the upset this week, but I would be pretty surprised if that happened. So, hold on, I got the Steelers are going to be undefeated. Oh God, that 10-0. No, disgusting.
Just wait till they play a real team. I mean, their schedule's been pretty soft. Not gonna lie.
I mean, I could totally see it hurts my soul that this could potentially be a 16-0 team. I don't think they will be, but they could be. But it'd be really funny if they did, and then they lost in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, the first round that they would play in because they would have a bye week. But I could see that happening to the Steelers team because they haven't been particular aside from the Bengals game. The Steelers just haven't really been convincing all year. They've been winning, and you got to give them that. Even if you hate them, I hate them. But you got to give them the fact that they've been winning. But you just beyond just the basic wins, it's really hard to give them that much credit for any individual win. But I agree. Give me the Steelers. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
It hurts to say it, but they're playing the Jaguars, so you got to take them.
Yeah. Thomas thinks that the Steelers are going to win as well. So I don't think there's any question that, it's like I said, I think it's possible the Jaguars can pull off the upset, but if I got to pick one or the other, I'm picking, I got to go with the Steelers. So we got the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Tennessee Titans this week. And personally, I think that I think a lot of people are going to look at this game. They're going to see the Titans kind of falling off in recent weeks, and they're going to, they're just going to check off the Ravens and not really think about it. But I think that this game could be a lot more competitive than people are thinking. Because don't forget, this is the team that knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs last year with a very similar setup that they have now, just obviously with the worst defense. But also the Ravens have a much worse offense right now than they did, most of last year. So what do you think, TJ?
Is it like a loser leaves town game where whoever loses this game is just done for the season? I don't know because they're both kind of like trending down, but the Titans are coming off of 10 days rest because they had the Colts on Thursday night. They're both kind of coming off embarrassing losses, honestly. Like the Ravens, as you guys predicted, that the Patriots would beat them, which was kind of a shocker to a lot of people. I mean, like that game, I guess it was just a spot for the Ravens where they're not looking good offensively at all. And so that's why I'm picking the Ravens. I'm picking the Ravens big. I think they're going to come back and they're going to just run it right down the Titans' throat. Could be completely wrong, as I've said on a lot of these, because these are a lot of toss-up games this week. I feel like this has been the hardest slate of games to pick yet in the whole season.
As I said, there are a couple of games this week that I think might be duds to watch. but that doesn't mean that they're like I agree with you. Every game this week I think is going to be a competitive one because when you've got any bad teams that you have playing this week are playing also bad teams. So I mean it's going to be a lot of. I think actually the one game that we still haven't talked about yet, but the one game that is really super mismatched. Well, no, never mind. You got the Steelers and Jaguars, so you got that one. But you also got the Browns and the Eagles, and I think that's a pretty mismatched game. But yeah, outside of that, it is weirdly competitive this week. So you picked the Ravens.
I'm
Thomas
picking the
also
Ravens.
do what? What'd you say?
Sorry, connection was slow. I picked the Ravens. Yeah.
Yeah, you picked the Ravens. Thomas also picked the Ravens. I am going to pick the Tennessee Titans. I just the obvious hole for the Titans is that defense, which can be a problem. But I think the Ravens have a huge problem with their offense right now. And it's not that Lamar Jackson isn't talented. It's not that, any individual player on their team is bad. It's not that John Harbaugh is a bad coach. It's not that Greg Roman is a bad offensive coordinator. It might, however, be that Greg Roman is a predictable offensive coordinator because I think the NFL has figured the Ravens out. And I think a great coach like Mike Vrabel could easily pick this team apart. I think
We saw it in the
Derek
playoffs last year.
do what?
We saw it in the playoffs last year when
Right.
they matched
We
up. I
did,
mean,
we
they
did
pretty
see
much dominated.
last year. I think this is another great example of it. If Derrick Henry can get going, I think the Titans can get a early lead and they can just basically hold the Ravens at bay the rest of the game. Um, Now, I mentioned this on the main podcast earlier, but if the Ravens lose this game, they are out of the playoffs. Now, they're not mathematically eliminated, but they lose their playoff seeding if they lose this game. So the Baltimore Ravens.
That made me smile.
You're right. The Baltimore Ravens, who everybody was like, "Oh, Lamar Jackson, he's the greatest thing ever," and the Baltimore Ravens, they're dark horse Super Bowl contenders. They could be out of the playoffs this week if they lose a very competitive game against the Tennessee Titans. That is a real thing that could really happen this week, and I'm picking that to happen. So we'll see what happens. But so next, we got the Cleveland Browns hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, listeners of this podcast will know that my co-host Thomas, who is not here this week, would say, Carson Wentz, you are trash. And unfortunately, he wasn't here this week to talk the trash that he so desperately wanted to talk. And I can tell you personally that he did want to say that. However, he picked the Browns to win this game, so he did as much trash talking as he could do. So yeah, what's your pick?
I think Mother Nature's been in the Browns' favor like the last month or so with the weather because the weather has like literally given them no other reason to switch up their game plan, which is just run the ball down teams' throats and not, Baker Mayfield, he is a great passer when he plays the Cincinnati Bengals. Against other teams, I'm not so impressed, but like their MO is let's run the ball. And when it's like 70-mile-an-hour winds and rain, seems to work. And so I think we'll see that again this week, even though Myles Garrett's out on the defensive side. The Eagles, I picked them last week to beat the Giants. I thought they would beat them. They look terrible. And if we see something similar to that, I think the Browns, they have a football team now. Like in years past, they were kind of, I didn't think of them in the same way that now just they have the coach now. Like Freddie Kitchens isn't the one, pulling the strings. Stefanski's actually smart when it comes to like a game plan like this. I think the Browns win this game easily.
I've said it a few times on this podcast, and I know Thomas knows this, but I will reiterate again that when the Browns picked Kevin Stefanski as their head coach, I said, "Oh shit," because I have been laughing my ass off at the Browns for years because it doesn't matter what talent they bring in, they have been terrible at picking people to run this organization. I still think that they have problems at the top level of their organization, but they finally have a coaching staff that is down to earth, smart, mature, which is what this roster needs, especially with guys like Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., etc., who have tendencies to be kind of immature and have tendencies to implode because of their immaturity. But you got a guy like Kevin Stefanski in there, and not only is he a smart, good offensive mind, but he's a mature guy who can keep this team together and keep this team from collapsing. And that is why I agree with both you and Thomas that the Browns are going to win this game. I think the Eagles are just way too chaotic. I wouldn't be shocked. Sorry, excuse me. I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles don't win another game this season, to be completely honest with you. It may sound kind of crazy to some people, but if you really think about it, I just I think the Eagles are in a free fall right now, and I think the calls for Carson Wentz's head in Philadelphia are just going to get louder and louder and louder and louder, especially with Jalen Hurts sitting right there behind him. The way I see it, this is just going to be another one of those free.
You know what's crazy is if they could lose the rest of their games and still be the first seed in the or the first place team in the NFC East.
That they could.
I don't know. I looked at their schedule
at 3-6-1. Well, actually, that's not accurate.
Yeah, no, I don't know what their schedule looks like down the stretch.
Oh, okay. So they play the Cowboys in Week 16, and they play.
So they have to win another game.
17. So I believe
they have to.
I believe that. Well, actually, no. Yeah, if they no. If they lose both of those games, then I'm not sure which of those teams overtakes the Eagles. But if they lose both of those games, then the football team. I think the football team would probably if every team in the NFC East loses all the rest of their games except for those two games, which wouldn't make any sense because they play each other. But just in this weird scenario, I think the football team would end up winning the division because they would have the same record as the Eagles. Oh, I know, because the Eagles have that tie. Never mind.
It's absurd that we're even talking about that, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's insane. But I think you might be right. Actually, they could feasibly lose all of the rest of their games and still win the division. That might be accurate. It sounds weird to say, and something in the back of my head's telling me, no, that's not right. You got to do the math.
Yeah, that can't be right.
But it looks right. That's insane. All right, so finally, we got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Washington football team. Now, these are two teams that are not good. The Bengals, as I talked about on the podcast, desperately need to start stringing some wins together to keep, at least I think the Bengals are going to still give Zach Taylor the benefit of the doubt, but the fans need to see something. And I still believe in Zach Taylor personally, but I will admit that, the constant losing, you got to show something. And if you can't even beat like these NFC East teams, if you can't even beat the Houston Texans, if we're struggling to win these games, and I'm almost going to say that if we don't win all four of these games, like, the remaining NFC East teams and the Houston Texans, if we don't win all four of those games, I'm going to have major questions for this coaching staff. The Washington football team.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall of that locker room at the present day, like right now, like after the Steelers lost, like, they present themselves to the media in a certain way. It's like, they act like it's not problematic or thing. I would just be curious to see right now what it's like, the culture and the Bengals locker room.
I would be curious for you to be a fly on the wall and then report about it and then read your report. But I do not want to be in that locker room after a blowout loss to the Steelers. That sounds like
but maybe like this week in practice, like what is there? Do you think they have do you think that they're positive in their locker room this week as they get ready for the Washington football team? Or is it like, we got to finish this season? And, what do you think it is?
I don't Well, okay, so let's just say I don't know any Bengals players. I met the only player who's still on the team who I've actually even still met is Giovanni Bernard. I interviewed him one time for Cincy Jungle. The other guys I interviewed, actually no, I interviewed Margus Hunt, who is back on the team now. So technically I've interviewed two of them. But most of the other guys that I interviewed have all gone by now. Carlos Dunlap being the most recent one to have left. But what I know about the Bengals locker room, though, is especially what I know about Joe Burrow, is there there's definitely going to be a sense of frustration in the locker room right now, but I don't think it's going to be a dejected sense. It's not going to be like, oh, we got to finish this season out. It's going to be like nose to the grindstone type. We're determined to do something. But that's what it's going to be I mean, they could be like 0-15, and I think that with Joe Burrow at the helm, it's going to be that general like nose to the grindstone. We got to find a way to pull this one out, even if we might be 1-15 this year.
Yeah.
I don't see. I mean, there might be individual cases of dejectedness in that locker room, but I think right now, honestly, most likely the feeling is going to be it's going to be a pissed off feeling, but like a determined kind of pissed off, not like a like woe is me kind of pissed off.
Yeah, like they know what they're capable of doing.
Right. So, but anyway, back on points. Who do you got in this game?
I think it's a weird spot, but I'm going to take the Bengals, of course, as a Bengals fan. I think the Washington football team has a really good front four on their defense. That's going to be a key matchup I'm going to watch. Is obviously just the battle at the with our offensive line, and I mean with the Bengals offensive line and the football team's defensive line. But I think their weakness is the deep ball, which is curious because the Bengals haven't really shown too many signs of really. This is what I want to see as a Bengals fan, completely apart from my prediction. I want to see them take some deep shots down the field. They haven't seen it a whole lot. I think this is a spot they could do it in, and I think we're going to see more offense from the Bengals than we've seen in previous weeks. And then they've got I mean, it's a great story with Alex Smith, but they got to try to keep the. He's going to do a lot of check downs and stuff like that. The Bengals are good at defending the backs out of the backfield, which is a lot of what Alex Smith seems to do with McKissick and a couple other guys. McLaurin's going to be a problem just because our corners. Here's the thing with the Bengals defense is they're so banged up, and that's what a lot of Bengals fans are struggling to grapple with, is that we're literally on some fourth and fifth string guys that are out there. So it's a challenge, and I think you're going to see a high scoring game. What do you think?
Well, as far as banged upness goes, it's not going to be quite as bad as the Steelers game because, to the best of my knowledge, you got LaShawn Sims coming back. I think I believe Mackenzie Alexander is going to be coming back. So first of all, you got two cornerbacks back already. So you got all three of your starters most likely back. There's Darius Phillips. I
Is he
don't.
out?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. Let's find out.
This is a game that most of the country won't watch, but we'll
He
be
went on
watching very
IR.
intently. Oh,
That sucks.
so yeah. So Terry McLaurin's good.
But we do have Terry McLaurin is good. But here is my thought actually about that. I think from a matchup perspective, this is actually a good matchup for the Bengals because the Redskins, wow, the football team have one good wide receiver, and that is Terry McLaurin. And he's a great wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. He's a burner. He's a speedy type. He's a workhorse too. But that's all they got. So here's my thought. Man coverage, William Jackson, and that'll take care of a lot. Not everything. There's still plenty of opportunities for McLaurin to burn him, but that'll kind of help keep McLaurin in check for most of the game. And then kind of like a safety valve type safety, like zone coverage from Jesse Bates on whatever side that Terry McLaurin's on. And then it's going to be really hard for McLaurin to, like, I mean, he can still probably, you know, Alex Smith probably still going to hit those, you know, cheap check down passes to McLaurin plenty throughout the game, but at least he's not taking the top off the defense. That's my thought process on how to stop Terry McLaurin. And then at that point, who else do the Redskins man, the football team. Who else do the football team really have to to really burn this Bengals defense? Now the Bengals defense is bad. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if you can put any pressure on Alex Smith, which you should be able to, because I mean the Bengals pass rush is bad, but the the football team's offensive line,
$20 in the jar every time.
Yeah, I'm up to 60 now. But when I do the editing, I should just, you know, like bleep every single time. But I won't do that. But yeah, the football team's offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL. I believe, actually, I mentioned this on the main podcast, but the Bengals have given up, I think, 32 sacks this year, and the football team has given up 30. Which is not good when your quarterback is the guy who almost died from being tackled. So that's not exactly good. And I personally, whenever I watch the football team play, I kind of cringe because I'm like, no, don't hurt Alex.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't tackle him. He's fragile. But yeah. So I don't know how much, like, I don't know how many sacks the Bengals are going to get this week, but I feel like any sort of pressure in the backfield, any sort of potential presence in the backfield for the Bengals is going to lead to pressures, just by dint of how bad the football team's offensive line is. And that's going to take care of one of the Bengals' biggest problems. And in addition to that, like I said, I think you can just shut down their number one wide receiver by putting your best corner on him and then, like, having some help from your, you know, potential all-pro safety. And then, I mean, what else are they going to do to you on offense?
And Alex Smith isn't as mobile as he was when he had two fully functioning legs. So, like, they should be able to, as terrible as the pass rush has been, you know, keep him from doing anything explosive with his legs.
Exactly. You know, from a defensive perspective, I think the Bengals match up incredibly well against the football team. And from an offensive perspective, yeah, I mean, it does kind of suck not having Joe Mixon this week, but you know, the football team have a very good passing defense, so I wouldn't recommend trying to really hammer home the pass so much this week. I do think Joe Burrow will be fine, but I wouldn't so much. I would definitely let Giovanni Bernard run the ball. And I think if you do that, especially with the offensive line playing better lately, and you likely got Quentin Spain, I think playing right guard in this game because I think Alex Redmond is out. So I think that's going to be a great opportunity for Giovanni Bernard to kind of break this game open and allow the Bengals to control the offense. If they can control their offense and shut down the Washington defense, it's going to be really kind of hard to imagine the Bengals not winning this game. So ultimately, I don't know. Look, like I said, give me the Bengals. You picked the Bengals, and I believe Thomas also picked the Bengals. So we got a clean sweep of the Bengals going on these predictions. So yeah, that pretty much does it for all of the predictions. We all got the Steelers winning. I'm picking the Titans while you both are picking the Ravens. I think we're all picking the Patriots. Me and you were picking the Dolphins. Thomas picked the Broncos. I think we're all picking the Chargers. I think we're all picking the Chiefs. We're all picking the Browns.
It's never a good sign when you hear that many alls picking somebody. We're all going to get burned.
Me and you were picking the Packers. Thomas picked the Colts. So
that's my most interesting game to look forward to. I think that's going to be a really interesting game.
I totally will admit that I could very much be wrong about that, but I got a better feeling about the Packers than I do about the Colts. We all picked the Bengals. You didn't. You don't get to pick this one because you're coming on Friday. But I picked the Cardinals and Thomas picked the Seahawks. So we
I
already
had
know.
the Seahawks.
He had the Seahawks, but unfortunately, it doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
Not that it really matter. Like, might actually work out in your favor if you do better than us. But I believe we all. Well, no, I believe me and Thomas had the Saints, and you picked the Falcons. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, you picked the Falcons.
that's my crazy pick of the week that won't make any sense.
All right. We all picked the Vikings. I almost picked the Cowboys, but I kind of reconsidered the last second. And then me and Thomas picked the Buccaneers, and you picked the Rams. So we will find out on the next incarnation or episode or whatever you want to call it of this prediction segment. And thank you for watching, everybody. You can, as always, you can find this on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to help the podcast grow. Comment down below if you have any ideas about anything, or if you just want to chime in on the conversation. Hit me up if you, like TJ, want to be on literally any episode. We will take anybody on any episode. And you, TJ, actually, if you want to come on another episode, let me know. You know how to get a hold of me. So you can find me on
Appreciate you
Twitter.
having me on. It was fun.
Oh yeah, it was definitely you very very knowledgeable. Definitely a good guest to have on. So appreciate you coming on. But anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Kyle Phelps 92, on Facebook.com/The Phelps. And you can find Thomas at TStar94 on Twitter and Instagram, and then YouTube. He's got a page called Blowdown Page. Is there anything you want to plug while you're here, TJ? Or
Cincinnati Bengals 2021 Super Bowl champs. Put your money in it now. That's what I'll plug. I've got it right here. These guys, lock of the week. Lock of the week.
I agree with that. Mostly just because we're playing a very bad team, but also because you're right. Bengals Super Bowl champions 2021. I actually got a mug around here somewhere. It's not exactly my proudest moment, but I predicted the Bengals to win the Super Bowl in 2008, and I went and made a whole mug out of it and everything. So that didn't. If y'all didn't know, the Bengals did not win the Super Bowl in 2008.
Is that the year Ryan Fitzpatrick played?
That I believe so. I believe it is the year Ryan Fitzpatrick played. I believe the was that the Steelers who won that year? Or was that the year after? I think it was that year the Steelers beat the Cardinals.
Sounds right. Yeah, right after the Giants Patriots 07. That sounds right.
I remember 2009 when the Bengals went to the playoffs that year, and the Steelers certainly did not win the Super Bowl that year. Because I remember I would have been pissed. Like, every year we go to the playoffs, the Steelers win the Super Bowl. But no, they did not win the Super Bowl that year. So, but anyway, everybody, thank you for listening. Appreciate it. And hoo-day.
Hoo-day.